at the University of Delaware. Molly Hemingway, editor-in-chief of The Federalist and Fox News contributor, and David Carlucci, former Democrat, New York State Senator. Great to see you both. Molly, I start with you for top-line thoughts.
Well, it's insulting to everyone's intelligence to say that the Biden administration has not been full of gaffes and full of scandals. And those are important. Like, the gaffes tell us something about his mental acuity. The scandals really point to not just the corruption of the Biden family business, but also these new allegations that the Justice Department or other groups were inappropriately interfering in an investigation of the same. But even bigger than that, setting aside the gaffes and the scandals, we have nationwide scandals in terms of a floundering economy that Biden keeps wanting to pump more taxpayer money into, which only makes inflation worse. No border. We have our foreign policy problems because Biden has led us into this war and taken his eye off China. Those are much bigger issues, but the gaffes and the scandals are also very bad.
David, your rebuttal.
Well, look, we can't talk about this in a vacuum. We have to look at the precedent that Donald Trump set.
Oh,
and
reflexively to Trump. You know what? Not on this Tuesday. Not on this Tuesday, because your guy just declared he's running for president as the oldest man in U.S. history to do so. We're going to stay on topic in honor of your guy, David. Try to talk about
in honor of President Biden, yes. When we talk about gaffes, these are innocent gaffes. They're not deliberate attacks on the media. And what it shows is that he's speaking from the heart. And he's delivering results. And that's what really matters. The gaffes that he said, they're not things that he's done deliberately or have caused controversy. When we talk about controversies, of course we have to talk about it in the collective, what we've seen over the past 6 years. And when we juxtapose the two, I mean, it's night and day. And that's why Biden is looking so well.
Okay, I do have one for you. The one China policy. And I mean, we still have a situation where threats have been made on the lives of American lawmakers who've gone to support Taiwan. I mean, think about this for a second. Think about what you just said. Didn't do it on purpose. He's done it so many times, the White House had to put away its broom from doing the cleanup on it. I'm going to have Molly have the last word on this before we move on.
Well, I do think it's interesting to compare the last 6 years. You had, during the Trump administration, a thriving economy, beginning to get control over the border, not a single new war breaking out, and the ending of wars that people had grown tired of how we were fighting them, versus just this horrific malaise that has beset the country. And the cringe-inducing gaffes, which really are, they're embarrassing. Just the clip you showed, you don't even want to watch it because it makes you feel so uncomfortable. They're not the most important thing, but they're also not great. And it's an embarrassing thing to see on the global stage.
David, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because your strategy about this, you have shared with us many times. Does it work? President Biden called out for his rare public appearances. Just last week, the New York Times reported that Biden is averaging just 10 news conferences a year. This is far fewer than any president since Ronald Reagan. Biden is also far behind on interviews. So far, Biden has only sat for 54, a fraction of the number granted by Presidents Trump and Obama in their first 2 years. A new op-ed with this headline, Biden's genius is his hiding. It could get him another 4 years. David, what do you think?
Look, where I come from, to talk just for the sake of talking is certainly not a virtue. And you mentioned that he's given less interviews, or he's given more interviews than one of our previous recent presidents, Ronald Reagan, who by many is considered the great communicator. So it's not about quality. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. And that's what's important to remember. In this day and age, 40 years later, after Ronald Reagan, we have a different way to communicate with the American people. We all admit that there's media that's giving different point of views, but if we can deliver a message directly to the American people, that's a good way to do it. So with technology, with social media, with people having access to computers and phones and being able to see this information instantaneously, the president has adopted a strategy to deliver that message. And remember, they've also reinstated a daily press briefing by the Secretary of Communication,
and you know what,
which
with all
was
due respect,
done away with under President Biden.
Tough, but I tend to roll my eyes when you talk about her, because it's more contentious than it ever has to be, because she simply won't answer a question. But I have often long thought, Molly, that's because they don't prepare her. She's often counter to the White House and the president with, not the White House, but the president with what she has to say?
Well, obviously, she's very bad at her job. But what's interesting is that she doesn't get that much pushback from the media. And I think Biden understands he doesn't need to do press conferences or work with the media publicly because they're basically carrying his water at all times. We have a corrupt media regime that silences effective conservative voices and thoughts and also runs Democrat messaging. He ran for president without being on the campaign trail. He certainly doesn't need to be doing anything now. They will take care of his messaging. They will lie on his behalf. They will suppress news and information that harms his presidency. They will elevate news and information that helps it. So, he's got them at his beck and call. He's got this, frankly, incompetent press secretary who is also cringe-inducing to watch. And the press don't really react that negatively to it, particularly in comparison to their utter hysteria when they were dealing with the previous administration.
David and Molly, always great to have you in focus. And David, you should call the White House and give them some messaging tips because you always have some in your back pocket.
Thank you.